My pregnant partner became fixated on the gym, and when I checked her phone, I stumbled upon intimate messages with a guy from her fitness class. To give you some context, my partner is 30 years old and has always been active, but lately, her dedication to working out has spiraled into something excessive. In college, she used to hit the gym regularly, but at some point, she stopped, likely due to her busy schedule. For a while, she preferred exercising at home or going for runs outside. About a year and a half ago, she announced her intention to return to the gym, and with her new job, she found more time to commit to it. Initially, her routine seemed normal, but it quickly escalated. She signed up for weekend classes and began going to the gym every single day. It became a ritual for her to work out in the morning before heading to work and then again in the evening. If she faced any stress or we had an argument, her immediate response was to escape to the gym. Now, at 4 months pregnant, I find myself surprised that we even managed to conceive a child amidst her relentless gym schedule. I understand that exercising during pregnancy is generally safe, especially since she was already accustomed to it, but her intensity shows no signs of waning. If she misses a workout, she becomes irritable, almost like a junkie deprived of their fix. It's a bizarre situation, too much of a good thing, perhaps. When I express my concerns about her obsession, she gets defensive, insisting that I'm being unreasonable. I miss spending quality time with her, but she seems to prefer the company of her gym friends over me. I've suggested we work out together, but she insists that the gym is her sanctuary. This isn't about my insecurities, I'm in good shape myself, as my job requires me to stay fit. I genuinely believe her gym habits are unhealthy. It feels like she's using exercise as a way to escape from the challenges in her life. Instead of addressing issues, she runs off to the gym for a temporary mood boost, leaving practical matters unattended. I find myself taking on all the household chores, and if meals are to be prepared, it falls on me. While I don't expect her to handle everything, I believe it should be a shared responsibility. Friends and family have even commented on her behavior, noting how different she seems and how rarely they see her. Some have even suggested that she might be having an affair with someone at the gym. Please tell me this doesn't sound normal. In an update, I shared my concerns about her gym addiction. She spends most of her free time there, often going twice a day, sometimes even 3 times if we have a disagreement. She refuses to let me join her at her gym, and I can't go to mine either. It's as if we have separate lives. I've invited her to work out with me multiple times, but she declines. Now, at 18 weeks pregnant, this is our first child, and while she worked out intensely before, her current dedication is alarming. Initially, I didn't suspect infidelity, but after reading comments on my previous post, I began to question my confidence in her fidelity. She usually keeps her phone close, but one day, she left it on the kitchen counter. Feeling foolish, I decided to take a quick look at her messages. I found an ongoing conversation with a guy from the gym, someone I recognized from her stories. At first, I wasn't overly concerned, but as I read the messages, my heart sank. I never wanted to invade her privacy, but I felt compelled to understand what was happening. When she returned, I confronted her about the messages, and she exploded in anger, accusing me of invading her privacy. I felt ashamed for looking, but I was desperate for answers. She insisted it was nothing, but her defensiveness spoke volumes. In a fit of rage, I slammed her phone down, shattering it. She retaliated by hitting me on the back, and I stormed out, seeking refuge at my brother's house. My brother and sister-in-law were taken aback, especially since my sister-in-law had been vocal about my partner's gym obsession. When I returned home, I found her in bed, crying. She was clearly upset, unable to reach out to anyone else. I took her phone for repairs, feeling guilty for breaking it, even though I was still furious about what I had discovered. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story, but she refused to admit anything beyond what I had seen. In another update, my partner confessed to having an affair. I didn't feel like posting in a subreddit that day, but I needed to share what had happened. She asked me to stay home from work so we could talk. She had spent the previous day in bed, trying to elicit sympathy from me, but I was resolute in my decision to attend a family super. For a while, everything seemed to be spiraling out of control. One day, she confessed that she and the guy from the gym had kissed. She admitted to enjoying it but also felt guilty. Yet, that guilt didn't stop her from sleeping with him later that night. She described the experience as akin to falling in love for the first time, consumed by thoughts of him. I couldn't help but wonder, was she in love with him? And what about our baby? She thinks the child is mine, but there's always that nagging doubt. He always used protection, so she believes it's unlikely, but they were intimate around the time she got pregnant. She claims to love me, but there's this undeniable spark between her and him. She's uncertain about her feelings for him, and the uncertainty about the baby's paternity looms over us. The most painful moment came when she asked, "You would really leave me if it's not your baby, would you?" I was taken aback by her audacity. Of course, I told her I would leave. I couldn't raise another man's child. Her shock was palpable, as if she couldn't fathom my response. Really? With everything we have? She asked, incredulous. I stood firm, telling her I would never consider it. She tearfully agreed to a DNA test, but I felt no sympathy for her. I didn't recognize the woman before me. Her tears seemed more self-serving than remorseful, as if she were trying to elicit pity rather than express genuine regret. My life felt shattered, and I was numb. The betrayal of her affair was already devastating, but the fact that she continued it after learning she was pregnant made it even worse. If it weren't for this pregnancy, I might have walked away already. Now, I'm left waiting for test results, uncertain about my future. She insists the baby is mine, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm trapped in a nightmare. I worry about the implications of raising a child with her, knowing that our family could be fractured. What if she decides to move away, taking our child with her? I can't help but think about how she might prioritize her gym life and the thrill of her affair over our family. It feels like she's ruined fatherhood for me, regardless of whether this child is mine or not. I had been so excited about becoming a father, even though it wasn't planned. We had names picked out, and I was there for every moment, only to have it all tainted by her betrayal. She keeps insisting that she'll never return to the gym or contact him again, but how can I trust her? She's still grappling with her feelings for him, and I can't help but feel that her attachment to him is more physical than emotional. Despite everything, I sense that she relies on me for stability. We've been together since she was 20, and I'm the familiar presence in her life. She has her gym friends, but without family or close friends nearby, I wonder how she would manage on her own. Today, she cried about how she's ruined her life, and while I could see a flicker of genuine remorse, I chose to ignore her. I asked her to get a blood test for the paternity test, pleading with her not to keep me in limbo. She mentioned that if he got a lawyer, things could get complicated. I'm meeting with a lawyer next week to understand my options. It's surreal to think about how she parades me around while I've never been allowed to step foot in her gym. I've only met a couple of her friends, and I even met the affair partner once when he called her for a ride home after a night of drinking. I didn't think it was wise for her to pick him up, so I went alone. I want her out of the house, but I don't want her to return to her hometown just yet. If this child is mine and she gives birth here, I'd be in a better position if she were to leave. She could easily stay with her parents, and that would become the baby's residence. She missed a few days of work after everything unfolded, but she returned to her job. This morning, she had a meltdown, and I left for work, knowing she was struggling. When she arrived at work, her colleagues were doting on her, making her food and tea, completely unaware of the turmoil in her life. She claims they've been sleeping together since last summer, but I can't trust her word. Then came the day that shattered everything. She announced she was moving in with her affair partner. My life felt like a scene from a trashy daytime talk show. The woman I once considered classy had devolved into something unrecognizable. She was pregnant, and the child could be either mine or his. She was too embarrassed to get a paternity test. I didn't fall for any of it. I've been largely ignoring her, and when we do have to communicate, I keep it brief. We've been living under the same roof, but I've retreated to a different room, functioning separately from her in every way. Her attempts to get my attention, like pouting and seeking validation for not going to the gym for 5 days, fell flat. Today, she texted me to say she was moving in with him. Somehow, I still care about her as a person and as the potential mother of my child, but hearing her say she was going to be with him stung deeply. I told her it wasn't a smart move to leave the house, and I even suggested she should consult a lawyer. But she didn't care about my advice. I felt a twinge of pity for her, realizing she couldn't stand on her own. I asked if her new partner knew she was pregnant and what story she had been telling him. She said he knew and didn't care if the baby was mine, he loved her and wanted to be with her. It was bizarre to me. Why would a single guy want to take on the baggage of a married, pregnant woman? It didn't make sense. He might be charming and successful, but I couldn't fathom why he would choose this situation. If this child is mine, I'd be sharing custody with a man who has no qualms about stepping into my life. I couldn't wrap my head around how my life had turned into this mess. She thinks it's embarrassing to get a blood test for paternity, but I see it as a necessary step. As of February 29, 2024, she moved in with her affair partner. Most of her belongings are still in our house, and I get the feeling she was waiting for me to beg her to come back. I didn't reach out after she left. It was a strange mix of relief, anger, and sadness. I didn't eat much until last night, I just didn't feel hungry. I drank a little too much, but I was managing. I'm posting this update because I've received countless messages, and it's emotionally draining to respond to each one. I just don't want to talk about her anymore. This morning, she texted to say her affair partner wanted to get a DNA test done, so she was going to do it. It didn't matter when I wanted one, but now that he's requested it, she suddenly thinks it's a great idea. She asked if I wanted to submit a sample, as it would be cheaper to test both fathers together. At this point, I don't care about the cost, I just want answers. I don't have to see or interact with them, I just need to make my own appointment for a cheek swab. I'm going to do that this Saturday, and we should have results within a week. It's better than dragging this out for another 20 weeks. I'm trying to function at work every day, but I feel stuck in limbo. I miss her, and it makes me sick to think of her with him. Part of me wants to beg her to come home, but it would be even worse if I find out the baby is mine and she's still with him. I refuse to play those games with her. Later that day, I received the news that I am the father. The emotions hit me like a tidal wave. I felt incredibly conflicted. I had thought I wanted to be done with her entirely, to sever all ties, but now I was faced with the reality of being a father. I had already been preparing myself for that role for months, even before discovering her infidelity. I hate that this is the situation my child will be born into. She's still living with him, and all her belongings remain in our house. I refuse to pack her things for her, she doesn't seem concerned about taking anything beyond the essentials. After I got the paternity results, she texted me, expressing relief that I was the father and that she knew I would be a great dad. She even sent me baby name ideas, but I ignored her calls. I only communicated through text. This morning, she asked if she could come by to pick up a few things. I agreed, following my lawyer's advice not to prevent her from entering the house, but I made it clear that her affair partner better not accompany her. Yet, who shows up with her? That scumbag boyfriend. He walked right into my house like it was no big deal. She dashed upstairs to grab her belongings, leaving him and me in the living room together. He tried to tell me it wasn't her fault he was there, claiming he understood how I must be feeling. No, he doesn't. He said he knew I probably didn't believe him, but he genuinely loved her and accepted that he might not be the father. He tried to assure me that he wouldn't try to take my place in the baby's life and hoped we could all get along since we would both be involved with her. He promised that she was fine and that he was looking after her. I couldn't fathom what he wanted with a pregnant woman carrying another man's child. It struck me as bizarre. I told him that if he didn't leave my house, I would punch him. I went upstairs to find her rummaging through the bathroom for her things. I was furious and asked her why she brought him along. I found it strange that he still wanted to be with her now that he knew he had nothing to do with this baby. I made it clear that I wouldn't allow him to have any role in my child's life. She said he talked her into coming and expressed her regret, claiming she never meant for any of this to happen. But she also confessed that she was in love with him now. Apparently, he was everything a 30-year-old woman like her was looking for, while I was not. She mentioned setting up a nursery at his place, while I could do the same at mine. She insisted she had no intention of trying to keep me from being involved in my child's life. How generous of her. I followed her back downstairs, and he was still standing there in the living room. I walked up to him and punched him. He stumbled back and fell into a table. She yelled in shock and rushed over to him. At that point, I didn't care. He deserved it, and it wouldn't have happened if he had just left when I told him to. Hours later, she texted me to apologize for the day's events. She claimed he really meant what he said and that he was a good guy who cared about her and respected me. What respect? He was sleeping with my wife in the gym locker room. She insisted she was trying to have a mature conversation and that she wasn't trying to hurt me. But the truth was, this guy had stolen my wife and was now trying to take my child too. Sure, I was the biological father, but they were setting up a nursery together in his home. I tried not to feel jealous or sad, but it was hard. I loved her, and I still did. I didn't want to stay married to her out of principle, but this was devastating. As of April 10, 2024, my wife is now about 26 weeks pregnant. Surprisingly, there hasn't been much drama between her and her affair partner. I took a long weekend away last week, which was a welcome break from the chaos at home. The only annoying thing that happened was when I told her I would be in the delivery room, not him. After everything she had done, she owed me that. It's not his baby, and he had no right to be there. She agreed, claiming she never planned to have him in the room with her. But then she told me that he really wanted to be there, and since she was the one giving birth, she felt she should have the final say. I could only imagine him starting to suggest names, trying to overrule the ones we had picked out for our future children. We talked a bit about the divorce, and she mentioned I could keep the house and the dog. I had already made it clear that I wanted to sell the house and split the profits. I wasn't going to buy her out of a house I had paid for. I had a much better credit score and less debt, and I wanted to find a place that suited me without reminders of her. The dog was non-negotiable, I had proof of ownership, and I wouldn't let her take him. My dog was far more loyal than my wife, and I'd be damned if I let her take him away from me. With the idea that I wouldn't be living in this house much longer after the baby was born, I decided to prepare a nursery anyway. I wanted to show that I was invested in fatherhood. I could choose whatever colors or themes I wanted. It felt strange to be living alone after so many years together, and while it was nice, it was also lonely. I had friends and family, but it was hard to muster the energy to go out. They always wanted to talk about what was happening, and I was tired of it being the center of conversation. I received a promotion at work, which would have been better if it had happened after the divorce, but I was grateful for it nonetheless. I felt like I was living in limbo, constantly considering how my actions would affect the divorce. I occasionally checked their social media, hoping to see something that would make me feel better, like him getting into a motorcycle accident. So far, nothing had happened, but he was starting a new company, and once it was up and running, I could always encourage my friends and family to leave negative reviews.